Right, we're live. Perfect. Let me make sure everything's showing on screen like it should. Great. We're going to get into deck building on Magic the Gathering, and this is with the Brothers War release. Also, this is with the Alchemy Brothers War release, as you can see here on the screen where it has that announcement. And I'm going to show you different ways to build decks or strategies that you can use to build decks. Cool, 3 more packs and I'll be good. Strategies that you can use to build decks to be more successful in Magic the Gathering. And we're going to build our deck based on our daily quest today, which is casting 20 black and blue spells. This is what I do to get a lot of practice with building decks is I take whatever daily quest I get and I build a deck that will challenge me. Like I tried to build something that would challenge me to complete the quest, and today we're going to do black or blue. This is good for me because the more practice you get at building decks and testing them out to make sure they're good, overall you're going to be better at just building decks when you actually want to build a deck around a certain card or strategy that you really like or very interested in. That's the importance of learning how to build decks. You will test a lot of other strategies first with other cards that you may not be that interested in. However, you learn more about card interactions, setting up combos, creating tempo, and let's get right into the deck building. I've spoken enough. I've got 16 decks already sitting there, and we're selecting the Alchemy format. I do play Alchemy. I like to be able to use the cards that are only available online too. They have very unique effects and they're very interesting. So we're going to start by filtering for Brothers War, and we're going to go for Mythic Rares and Rare. I have not played a great deal of this set so far. Some of my cards, so I may have to unlock a lot more cards here, and that's okay. That's what actually makes the game fun, is having to unlock the cards. Some people choose to spend money, which is great too if that's what you need to do. You already know what you want to build and you're going in a competitive aspect. I don't play competitive and I do some rank. However, let's take a look at what we got. We're trying to find the backbone of the deck first. And I do have one mythic rare wild card. So I could use that. I could use that in order to create another mythic rare if I feel like that is needed. We could take a look at this right here. Since I have 3 of these already created or crafted, whenever you draw a card, put a loyalty counter on Teferi, Temporal Pilgrim. And when you're building a deck, you want to think about what is the win condition that you're going to get. Occasionally you may build a deck and it doesn't do anything. It does the combos you want it to do. However, it may not actually, you don't know the strategy to how you're getting to the win. And that's very key. We're more than likely just going to use this wild card here and just figure it out. We're just going to go with that. Use this wild card here and figure it out because, let's see, you put a spirit creature token with vigilance. Whenever you draw a card, put a 1/1 counter on this creature. And then let's see what this does. Tap 3, untap soldiers. You control, draw a card. That's whenever this attacks. Alright, we're going to try a strategy around this and see how far we can get. We know we want the Sky Strike Officer and Teferi. Anything else that we can find that may combo with this? Let's check here with all the other Brothers War cards that I have unlocked so far. How many wild cards do I have? 1 rare wild card. That gives me a chance to think about if something else needs to be crafted in order to try out the strategy. I don't want to craft extra underground rivers, but I do want to include it in my deck. Anything else that could be useful? Search a target card. Exile Stasis Coffin. Let's go with some things that stick out more inherently. Whenever equipped creature dies, draw a card. Which this could be played on turn 3. or turn 4. This could be played on turn 4. That will allow us to draw a card. That is interesting. We'll drop one of these in the deck because it could go with this. And it's a chance the Sky Strike Officer will die since it gets this effect from attacking. So you have to think ahead. If this card says whenever it attacks, think about it's a high chance this card is going to die when it attacks. So also comboing it with something that goes with whenever a creature dies, it's a high likely chance. It's a chance that you will get some value out of playing both cards because you're going to get two effects even if the card dies. That's the way you want to think of it. How do I get value even if my opponent removes it? That's really important. All right, and then we got Temporal Anchor. At the beginning, you may exile that many cards. You may cards play with temporal. Right now we have two of these. We'll put these in here just to see what they will do. And this one lets you play spells from your hand or the top of a library without paying the mana cost. We'll put one of those in the deck just to see what they do. That will be the top end of the deck, like the ultimate, like the power cards in the deck. Let's see what else this does. Whenever Arcane Proxy enters the battlefield, if you cast it, exile target instant or sorcery card with mana value less than or equal to Arcane Proxy's power from the graveyard and copy it. I don't know if I'm going to be playing a whole lot of instants and sorceries just yet, so that's going to be hard to say if I need that in the deck right now. Let's look at what else we have here. Whenever this attacks, I could sacrifice another creature and create a Power Stone token. This isn't going to center around any strategy that I'm doing, so we'll move on. If a creature opponent would die, exile it instead. No. Okay. We're going to go with this here. As far as our setup, Sky Strike Officer and Temporal Program, they both have ways to draw cards. And we're basically playing a slow control style deck here. And I still have to figure out what's the win condition. Now let's take a look at some of the uncommon cards from Brothers War, because these can be some of the most useful cards in the deck. Even though they may not win you the game, they may have some of the most useful effects. This one, whenever you draw your second card per turn, put a 1/1 counter on Thopter Mechanic. Obviously that goes along with the Sky Strike Officer. So this is a setup card. You can do Sky Strike Officer, and these are Thopters. You could tap 3 on 3. They don't go together that well, now that I'm really looking at it, because this says untap soldiers. So we would need more soldiers in the deck, which this is a soldier. When this enters the battlefield, return up to one other target creature you control to his hand. If it was a soldier, put a counter on Zephyr Sentinel. Alright, interesting. So those are soldier cards. And it doesn't look like there's a lot of synergy with that. What we'll do is put 2 Go for the Throats here. We want ability to remove something. And we're not going to go 4 because it's not something that you need in a deck. A lot of removal isn't something you actually need in a deck. You can't go 0 in most decks. But to have it available for a situation can be great every now and then. Alright, now we'll move on. See what else we have here. Target opponent reveals their hand, and they choose an artifact or creature card from it. Then choose an artifact and creature, exile the chosen cards. So you're exiling 2 cards. We're going to do that. That's good control. Sacrifice a creature. Okay. You can have Hulking Metamorph enter the battlefield as a copy of a creature you control. And let's see, so that would be something that if you were going on tempo, it would copy a Sky Strike Officer. and it's worth trying just to see what it does. So I'm gonna craft those. I have no idea how. Oh, only have 12 uncommons. I gotta be careful. Alright, 3 untapped soldiers, draw a card. This happens to be a soldier, I'm noticing that. Protection from multicolored. Whenever you're in a non-basic land, you gain 1 life. Let's try it. Just because it's a soldier, it does synergize, and we're gonna put 4 of those so we start the game with those, hopefully. And the Hulky Metamorph is used to copy Skystrike's officer. You always think about tempo. Tempo means on turn 3 are you using 3 mana, on turn 4 are you using 4 mana, and how do they combo with each other? How does your cards complement each other for each turn? On turn 3, knowing what your deck is supposed to do, versus on turn 4, knowing what your deck is supposed to do. Here I know on turn 3 I should be playing Skystrike Officer, and then I would like to play Hulky Metamorph to copy the Skystrike Officer on turn 4. These are ideal plays. Granted, you know that the way you draw cards, it won't always happen. Occasionally, cards are going to get removed from the field to stop you from doing everything you want to do as well. But you still want to plan for optimal plays to be they'll be available to happen occasionally. So we're planning for that. This is revealing artifact cards. This is countering an artifact or enchantment spell, or it counters an ability. Defabricate. It may be more useful to have something that just counters anything versus throwing this in here. This would be good in drafts for sure. Let's check and see what else we have here. Whenever creatures leave the graveyard, we're not really taking things from the graveyard. Let's see, whenever you draw your second card each turn. So this is a situational card. Situational cards, it's good to tech them into the deck. And by saying tech a card into the deck, that means it's in the deck as a little bit of flavor and adds more variety to the deck. However, it may not be the ultimate thing that causes you to win. And we're gonna call this a tech card, which you never want to play 4 of your tech cards in your deck. They're just a little extra spice. So this synergizes, and we're going to tech that in with the 2 for right now, because we would like to see it on field, not every single game. Okay, when a creature with power equal to its toughness enters the battlefield, do we have a lot of that? Under your control, you may pay 1. If you do, draw a card. This is cool. This is a good tech card also, because it actually goes with the Pilgrim, believe it or not. This actually goes with the Pilgrim. Interesting. So we'll try 2 in there. Interesting. Symmetry Matrix, because you can set yourself up to create a 2/2, which it actually has the same power and toughness. Anything else have the same power and toughness? The 1/1 artifact colorless soldiers, that has the same power and toughness. The Hulky Metamorph does. The Spectrum Sentinel does not, however. And that's okay. So this is all we could find so far from what I have crafted from Brothers War, and that's fine. We only have 8 spots left. And when you have very little spots left, let's check the alchemy too. When you have very little spots left, you definitely want to see where can the more rare cards, the really good cards, slide into your deck, like the mythic rares. Is there room for the mythic rares to still exist without you detrimenting yourself as far as not being able to play cards early game? When this target creature you control with less power returns, conjure a duplicate. So this is just something that could be useful in a situation, and so the fact that we only have 1 is worth trying, so we'll go with the 1. We'll take out this Temporal Anchor because this is just a test card right now, and that's 6 mana, And so since we're just testing, we want a little bit of variety when we're testing, and then we can figure out what cards absolutely have to be 4 counts in the deck. When this enters, okay, so that's a very specific card that we cannot use. And let's check and see if we unlocked any decent uncommons for the Alchemy Brother War. When it enters the battlefield, it creates a Power Stone token. I'm not centered around the Power Stone tokens right now, even though I do have some artifacts in the deck, but my deck isn't too centered around it. Yeah. Now we'll take a look at this. This automatically lets you draw a card, which we know this may fit in the deck. If Piece It Together's intensity is 4, take an extra turn after this one. Perpetually increase Piece It Together's intensity and the intensity of cards named Piece It Together in your graveyard hand library by 1. This is a great sounding card. We have no option but to play 4 of these to test this out, because it basically plays off of you having more than one piece. And yeah, looks like we're gonna have to try that out. Target creature gets -3/-3 until the end of the turn. We're gonna try this out. This is just removal. Removal is good. You gotta have something sometimes to have some defense. Okay, and look at that. We're left with 2 cards remaining, and those are gonna have to be mythic rare because you want to make sure you have some power in your deck. Have some power in your deck. Now, this can get tricky. This is a good tech card, Tezzeret, because we know we have artifacts in there, and it also draws cards. So that's synergy. You're looking for synergy always. We know we have artifacts in the deck to go with the +1 effect, and then the +1 effect also helps us with buffing up that creature that we're trying to finish the game with. So the Tezzeret, we're going to have to use that. Now, let's check and see if we have anything else that looks really cool. I really like this card. Before I look at anything else, I think I'm going to just have to take this card because this draws us cards. This draws us cards. So there's a lot of things going on here. Let's see. We got blacks as well. The slug draws us cards. That's very slow. A very slow effect. We have to be mindful of that. The Tasha, just a great card in general, obviously. Can't be blocked. Interesting. We have some interesting things going on here. This could be a good tech card here. It's so hard to fit in cards at the end. That's the fun of making a deck, because if a card does not work that you have in a deck, you can come back and add some other things. What I like to do is throw stuff in the sideboard that are good ideas, and that way I can come back to them if needed. And that way you could kind of check back in and then try the other ideas. From here, I am thinking I'm centering most of this around Teferi and drawing cards. Since this has synergy, when you draw a card, gain life, we'll take that. Multiverse, we'll drop out some of the stuff that doesn't actually have draw. Even though it does fit with the, it helps you, give you variety in the deck though. That's the good thing. There's nothing wrong with variety, because that allows you to beat different type of decks without changing your deck up too much. However, I want to go with these because these are draw cards. Those help you draw. A lot of blue obviously helps you draw. And we're going to go with this. This will be the first draft. As you can see what I did, I added removal to the deck, not too much. I added synergy as far as making sure this is a soldier, making sure that synergizes with Sky Strike Officer, and this synergizes with the drawing ultimate cards. But you're making sure that you don't overcommit on adding these to the deck. Anything that does not directly add to the strategy, you may want to be careful than overflowing your deck with them. It also gives you room for your deck to be able to do multiple things to handle multiple situations. And we'll see how a lot of my theories actually hold up in a match. We're just going to double check our lands. I usually add rare lands to the deck. Those are usually the most useful lands that you can add. And so we're going to go with our Shipwreck Marsh, our Takenuma, Otara. And then since you're playing a two-color deck, it's always good. You just got to use one Forsaken Crossroads unless you have a lot of one drops in your deck. Forsaken Crossroads may not be the best. And it's okay to cut out Forsaken Crossroads if you notice you're somehow getting it on turn ones and you also have these. If the situations don't add up right, remember you can always change your deck in the end. They do have tap lands that are common for every color, obviously. These are good whenever you know you're not going to play one drops in your deck. If you somehow skip over having one drops, then these are the best lands to put in your deck for two colors or maybe even three sometimes. So we're going to go ahead and test this out. I don't really know what to call this deck. It is centered around Teferi. So we're just gonna I don't know. Give me a good idea for this deck. We have to think of a name. It uses Teferi, it's drawing cards, and we've got soldiers. Interesting. We're just gonna call it something cool, I guess. Teferi Abyss. Who knows? However, we got our land set up. A lot of basic lands here just because I don't have 4 copies of Plain Shipwreck Marsh. That would be cool. I could use wild rare cards to make those. I'm not. Only 1 copy of the Otara. Since it's a legendary land, I don't want to overflow my hand with those or the Takanumas. And we'll go ahead and start with this and let you see what that looks like based on the strategies that I just went over with you and put this to test. That way you'll know if I'm just making stuff up or if I really know what I'm talking about. I usually know what I'm talking about when it comes to this. I love building decks and I have success with a lot of them. There's times they just flop and I get frustrated. You may have had that happen with yourself. You build a deck, you have all these great ideas in your head, you start playing and the deck doesn't do what you thought it was going to do at all, or you just get run over. Your deck could be too slow. That's usually one of the biggest problems I see with most people, is their deck's too slow. Alright, to piece it together, we don't have to use this on the first turn. However, I'm tempted to see how that's going to play in the deck. We're going to start with that. Is that game sound? The game sound sounds loud in my ear. Let me turn that down just a little bit. These sound effects are loud. Alright, don't have a lot of 2-drops in the deck. Most of my 2-drops are removal. So we'll go ahead and play the piece it together. So we'll get the draw card. Okay, let's go ahead and just go ahead and do that. Draw a card. We got our land. That's great. And we've got our Teferi and Skystrike Officer in hand too. All we need to do is be able to survive. Like I said, that is usually the biggest problem with a lot of decks when you're trying to build them, is just not being able to live long enough to get your strategy out. And so a lot of people like this deck, they build burn, they build aggro, because you're almost guaranteed to at least play magic. And we'll see if our deck's fast enough or able to keep up. Occasionally you'll have, I'll keep this here because I may need to block, knowing that I'm playing against a red deck. Understanding what colors can do is important too. Having defense built into your deck is really good. Like I have 2 defensive creatures right now. And see, I knew he was going to put out something there, but we're going to stick to our strategy for right now. We have tempo, which means every turn we're able to play a card, and the Temporal Pilgrim should be coming out next. This has to attack so it gets its effect, and eventually that should be some synergy. I feel like we could sacrifice the Spectrum Sentinel at this point. I feel like we can. I mean, it looks like we're going to have to block because it's getting crazy out here on this field. And also, one thing you'll notice when you're testing decks, you'll just run into decks that also are bad matchups for your deck type. And the only way to know is you have to test against multiple different decks to know whether or not you actually are just you have a bad deck, or it's just you had a bad matchup against a certain deck. And that's the pain of it. it could be painful. You won't know until you try them out. You play, you see what happens. He's got his removal, he's got his aggro, so he's got a very tight gameplay strategy here. And you can't let this stuff get to you when you're first testing out a deck. Some decks you will just have a hard time beating regardless. So we'll let him attack. The beginning of deck building is all about just learning how to build the deck. Remove 3 counters, alright, and then we'll give that a 3/3. Alright, and so it's possibly going to be the end of the game here, and I won't change anything with the deck based on this match. I'll check and see what other matchups I run into first and make an assessment of that. However, this I'm not too mad about at all. My deck doesn't have all the right cards to even deal with that matchup, which means I would have to change up my deck drastically to beat that, and I don't want to do that when I'm first trying to create a deck. The best way to change up your deck is when you notice you were in a matchup where maybe if you only had one different card in a situation, you may have won. That is the best way to find out how to change up your deck or which card you should take out or leave in. And so this is the pain of testing decks in the beginning. It's not that you're just going to put together a deck because you have so much knowledge and experience that it automatically works. If you keep that in mind, you will end up being very patient and breaking through and finding a deck that can dominate eventually, whether it takes 10 or 30 matches to get that deck correct. You will learn how to make it adapt to what people play, where you could almost be unstoppable in most situations. And that's the ultimate goal you're looking for. You're looking for test the deck, put it through the ringer so many times that I'm almost at a point I know I can't lose as long as I draw cards, as long as I draw each turn, as long as I get my land. Very small chance I'm going to lose. If you factor in the win percentages of even the best decks in Magic the Gathering, they usually at the highest level have a 60% win rate on average, and that's even high on the high end. Most of them have 55% win rates, which means even the best decks still only win. The best decks possible in the game that mostly everyone is playing only wins 50% of the time. And I'm going to get countered here. Countering creature spells, and he's going to be swarming with creatures. And we've got Warzone Duplicator. We're not duplicating anything, so we'll go Sentinel first, and then Sky Strike Officer. We don't have a lot of defense to deal with this at this time. That's okay, though. We'll leave this here. When the equipped creature dies, we'll use 1 black, and then they'll give us the piece it together as well. Very good. I forgot what I was saying. Oh, they're looking at my cards. Just piece it together. Next turn, Sky Matrix. Okay, so it's going to be tapped eternally. Do we go for Sky Strike here or the Sentinel? Power and Toughness enters the battlefield. Let's see. Okay, we'll do this just in case we have to block the Transmogrant Crown. We'll put that over here, and if we have to block, it will die. I'm actually going to take more damage. It's okay to take damage sometimes if you really need certain cards for your strategy, because the strategy or the combo that you get to could get you to a point where you can withstand the rest of the damage or start gaining life from a certain situation. He doesn't even want to attack in this situation. That is great. I'm running out of time, though. I have to do something here. Return target creature opponent. Okay, so we could return the champion. No, because it's going to be 3. Interesting. Let's go Hulky Metamorph. This is all I could think of at this time. Yeah, that's all I could think of at this time. We're gonna Hulky Metamorph and copy our friend here. Sky Strike Officer. Make our creature token there. And I may find out that this is not a good strategy. That's what happens sometimes. You test it enough, you may have to scrap the whole thing. The idea of me helping you out while making this video is so that way you learn enough so that you don't have to scrap decks as often and you can actually do really well with them. I'm glad we have a token to block. That's what we're going to end up using it for. And that's the Decayed effect coming into play here. The Sky Strike Officers are going to serve as good defense. And actually they go good with the Symmetry Matrix. So he's got an autopilot deck going on. I'm going to have some autopilot stuff going on here. We're going to attack. There we go. Alright, destroy target non-artifact creature so we can get rid of the Champion of the Parish. He has to play some removal or go aggressive here since I'm creeping up on his life total. I'm glad we can block the champion. See, yeah, he realizes I've got to go aggressive. We've got blockers eternally from what it seems, as long as he cannot remove our creatures. Alright. What we'll do is try our best to play this safe. We'll go with removal. Okay. We will also try to send something back to hand. But we'll wait. Let's attack first. Let's get our damage in because we want to draw these cards to see what they look like. Draw a card. We're gonna play it safe. We're gonna wait to use the duplicator, so we're not gonna double up on that. Alright, duplicator is gonna come out. Returns it to the hand. I make a copy. So we need blockers. That's really what we're doing there, is making blockers. He has to have removal to win the game, which I technically put myself in a sticky situation. My field isn't that durable. We leave each other up to, like, this is the last turn for both of us. And it looks like he lost. Okay. And so, yeah, he loses here. And that's fine. We both say good game. We knew that he just didn't have the cards to deal with it. And I'll attack over the top for game. So these Sentinels and the Symmetry Matrix, as you can see, this is automatically a good strategy combo that we found. It actually kept us alive and won the game all on its own. Sky Strike, Sentinel, and Symmetry Matrix. So now, Sky Strike Officer. So now we're taking notes because let's say we wanted to go back in and create a whole new deck idea. And let's say the whole idea was centered around Sky Strike Officer, the Hulky Metamorph copying it, and we just maintain control of the field this way. In my head now, I feel comfortable building a deck around just these 3 cards because it won me a game. So that's something to take note of. If all these other cards start seeming to be something that are not helpful at all, then if I did have to scrap the deck, I got a brand new idea of something that I know could be a working strategy, and already have an idea of how I could make sure it works. Because, you know, if you're gonna keep strikes like Sentinel on the field and you just want to sit there and dominate the skies, you know that you're going to want to play counter spells so they can't remove it, or either you're going to need to play something that removes creatures that could possibly block the Sky Strike Sentinel. With that being said, that will tell you what other cards to fill into the deck without you even having to think hard about it. And I love that right now. You see and get to hear how my brain thinks while I'm playing and testing decks. That's why to me it is easy at most times to build decks and have success with them. When I think about it this way, I'll say, okay, if I know I'm going to be protecting a card, all I have to do is put in stuff that protects my strategy. All I have to do is put in things that remove creatures that could stop my strategy. All I have to do is put in cards that will, you're playing defense. Once you know what your offense is, that's a good thing. So we're going to take the land here. Granted, I am kind of over flooding my hand with land. I'm going to stay confident though. I know I'm going to need a lot of land overall. Ooh, geez, they're all about gaining life. This could be a long match. I already know that I'm going to be drawing cards as long as I keep my Sky Strike and Symmetry up. And you see that strategy there is already set in my hand. And we have a different strategy coming into play here is the Gurgling Anointer can help add to what we need. I will keep the Spectrum Sentinel here as defense in case I need it. I just never know if I feel like I will need it. And it's good. He's got the Death Touch there. More than likely, we're just going to let the Sky Strike Sentinel, the Spectrum Sentinel just die on the next turn. Because since he's playing all white, there's a low chance that he's going to play a land, a non-basic land that activates the effect of the card, which is unfortunate. Mono white decks are not likely to do that. Based on that knowledge, it's best to stop some of the bleeding damage here. Honestly, the way this deck seems like it plays, I may not need... Okay. I may not need Teferi in this deck at all. However, it is a great tech card. We will see. Let's go ahead and play the Gurgling because now this combos. See, this could be just like a small combo deck when I'm really factoring everything in. Alright. So what would be great is if I just play cards in here, I'm thinking now, what would make this deck better? If I had a 1-drop that was a blue that helped me play defense. Which we already know one of the best blue drops is the one that returns a creature to hand, and if his mana costs 3 or less, you get the Scry. So now I get to think, what if I just take the Teferis out? And if I had a blue 1-drop, this Lion Sash would do no damage to me. Simple as that. We're not even going to block. You don't always have to block every creature that comes up. But that's how you have to think. So we're going to actually try that. The Teferi may not be needed at all here. Let's go ahead and Hulky Metamorph. Actually, let's get a little bit of value. Hulky Metamorph is going to copy Anointer. Wow, you could copy Symmetry Matrix as well because it's an artifact. That's beautiful. Oh, we don't want to draw right now, actually. We don't want to get greedy. Actually, yeah, we do. Because we're trying to activate effects for right now. We've got our removal. So we know we're good. We've got our removal. We got our defense. Alright, so once again, yeah, we got a removal. And that's an artifact, though. Yeah, that's an artifact. So I can't destroy it that way. I can remove loyalty. No, that's remove loyalty counters. So he's removing the Gurgly. Okay. That's fine. At least we know Lion Sash. We'll go ahead and block here. Just to not take unnecessary damage. We have more black cards in our hand, so I will choose to play a black land because it's more likely. Actually, it's equal. We have 2 blue mana in our hand, 2 black mana in our hand. But based on the field, we'll go ahead and do this. While we can, this is going to be perfect. Give this 3/3, minus 3/3 into the end of the turn. That's a perfect opportunity. And don't just remove creatures because you can. That's another strategy. I could destroy this Impassioned Orator, but the Impassioned Orator is not going to stop us from winning. It's not going to kill us, so we're going to go without. Let's go ahead and do this. Play for 1. So that way if they get rid of Sky Strike... Oh, I played that wrong. Maybe? We'll see. And so yeah, as you can see, the deck, it kind of runs itself. It kind of runs itself once we get everything set up. This is good. Granted, yes, sometimes you won't be able to get away with this if the person you're playing against has a lot of removal. And they're starting to let the removal cards come down. Which, like I said, I would actually play counter spells at this point, so that way I'm just stopping them from doing what they want to do. And now the Teferi, the tech card gets to be played, actually. Yeah, now we actually get to play the tech card. And we're not going to use this here because we got to go for the throat. So that way, this is an instant, yes. So we want to be able to just be prepared on their turn to do something. They're doing really bad with land unless this is what they expect. I don't know. It would seem they would be very aggressive if this was their idea. So he's getting rid of something here. In the Sky Strike, I can actually get that effect if that's what he's going to target. So let's just go ahead and get that effect. Draw. Okay. So this is getting good. This is getting good here. He has to block because this is game damage. And of course, we want him to block the 1+1s. So that's why we put them out there, because we're still doing 6 damage. Putting him at pretty much lethal here. And this is going to be game. Beautiful combos. Beautiful combos. And that's game. Alright. That worked out. May not be the most ideal situation for decks that you're going to play against. And now it makes me question the Teferi being removed. The Teferi being removed may have caused an issue there as far as being able to get that win condition the way we did. That was beautiful. That was beautiful. Alright, cool. We got another pack. And let's go to the store. And we'll buy an alchemy pack since we're mostly playing alchemy. To test out some of these new cards. Alright, great. 2 more packs and we'll be at a situation where we can open the gold packs. And that will bring us opportunities to create even more decks. Great. I've seen a card. I've got one of these in one of my decks already. When Falagi Antiquarian enters the battlefield, conjure a duplicate of another non-token creature or artifact you control into your graveyard, and it gets unearthed. This is interesting. I love to see what I could do with this. That seems like it could create some nasty combos. Now, we're going to go back into our match. We haven't completed our daily quest yet. We're going to get back in here, test out the Teferi Abyss deck once again. It ran smooth there. You saw the tech card that I had in there for the draw on the second turn. That turned out to be integral to the damage that turned out to be integral to the damage that I was able to put in consistently turn over turn. Force the opponent to spin their cards to remove my stuff versus being able to play their own strategy. That is always a good way to control the game in Magic, is you have cards that's good enough or that are synergizing well enough. The opponent has to find ways to start answering those cards if their strategy is not faster or better than what you currently have. We've got a nice start, a Go for the Throat for protection. We also have the Lonely Inn, which will possibly be used before they Go for the Throat. Hopefully they play a creature so we can get a little bit of value. And we'll go here just because this is more likely to kill a smaller creature, destroy a smaller creature, and the Go for the Throat could be more beneficial later in the game if there's a large creature. Since they're playing green, we know the creatures are going to be very large. Also, since they're playing green, they could play spells that destroy flying creatures or creatures that have reach. That will be our weakness if they happen to be playing those types of deck. If they happen to play that type of deck. Hulking Metamorph is going to copy the Sky Strike. And so that's why it's good to get your tempo figured out so you know you have a guaranteed combo that's kind of cool for your deck. It would have been great. I wanted to have 2 blacks available so the Sheoldred could start working his magic. And I guess we'll just have to wait. We know the Spectrum Sentinel will just be a blocker in this match or potential late game draw. And he's looking to destroy an artifact. I don't see how that will be very helpful. Let's go ahead and attack with the strikers. We actually have 3 soldiers on field. And this will be able to give us blockers and card draw on their turn. Because the Sky Strike soldiers do not have to attack. I mean, they do not have to tap on the opponent's turn. This is going to be really good defense we have set up. I love the way that synergizes Sky Strike Officer if it gets its chance to attack. Because it has flying, you're getting a high chance that it will be able to attack. And if it does, you have blockers, you have defense while you wait for some of the cards that you need. You have ways to draw cards until you want to get to what you need. These 1/1 blockers can be very annoying against decks that have smaller creatures that don't want to just run face to face with what you got. And now he's looking, he has the ability to destroy artifacts, but these are wasteless artifacts. They're tokens, you don't really want to use the ability for them. And I don't really see the synergy in his deck, which is the hugest issue that I see with him, is there isn't a lot of synergy. Okay, so we'll go ahead and tap. Draw a card for free. And then non-artifact creature. We'll go ahead and get rid of the Gallic Readers. It seems like it has the opportunity for the most value on his team. And we want to see if we can force him to use a card, which he didn't want to. It could be a mistake later, but I was thinking about the potential that the card has to ruin our day. So this will be interesting. That's going to be risky. The Sky Strike officers are going in. Yes, baby. Flyers for the win. Good thing he has nothing really large. This was actually take care of the larger creatures, the Warzone Duplicator. So I see room to have some more synergy with possibly creating Warzone Duplicators. Oh, I pressed the wrong card. I pressed the wrong card. I did not mean to press that. Oh man, what a misplay. And it was unintentional misplay too. Like I knew what I wanted to target. It just didn't work out the way. It looks like we're going to take the game. We didn't put out any creatures with reach or anything like that. Very interesting. And we're not going to block. Well, we might as well because we'll have to. We'll still get our value from that, and we can still block and do enough damage to destroy the creature, hopefully. And if not, it just doesn't seem like there's much he could do. His deck not really showing a lot of efficiency. Granted, he could buff his creatures, we know that. And it's not about that for me. I'm making tokens every single turn. He can't remove the core of the team, so this doesn't matter. This doesn't matter. The Sky Strikes are seeming to be a really good card. Didn't know I was going to get this much potential from this card, which is why deck building and testing decks is the most beautiful thing ever. This is why I love Magic the Gathering. And then tomorrow there'll be a different daily quest. I'll test out a different strategy, and it starts all over again. So we're going to choose an artifact or creature from their hand. We'll go with this first. Just checking to see what they got before we make a play. So the Gigantosaurus, the Gallagrators, they're exiled. He has ways to win the game. He's just not set up with enough damage to make it reasonable for him to use those cards at this point. And since we are already... We're going to go ahead and push in for game as much as possible here, because we know we're getting 2 guaranteed blockers. Now, could I have been a little bit more reserved, kept one of the soldiers unblocked? I could have. However, this is game. This is game. You set them up where it can't do anything. The Sheoldric can just end the game for you. That was beautiful. That was beautiful. I don't know if he just didn't get his cards in the right way, didn't get enough land on the turns. I wasn't paying so much attention. However, that got us our daily quest for today. We'll head back to the store and purchase another pack. We're 1 pack away from getting that gold pack opening. All right, great. And what we have here, this is a black and blue card. Let's take a look at what this does. He enters the battlefield. Why is I can barely see the effect? Let's go to the deck section. We'll look at the effect real quick. Maybe it actually may fit in this deck, believe it or not. We'll see. So when he enters the battlefield, we conjure a Midnight Clock. Midnight Clock, it's an older card. I remember this one. And oh, it puts it onto the battlefield. Perfect. Because I was about to say, if you had to play this, this is a very slow strategy. You would have to wait till next turn to play the clock. The clock's using up your turn and your mana. This is good. So you play him, he automatically adds 1 mana to the field. Thinking about that, you got 1 blue mana. This is good to put a 1 blue mana card in your deck as well that will combo with Rusko. Play a lot of 1-drops that are blue. Perfect counter, perfect thing here, because you'll get the second effect, which is whenever you cast a non-creature spell, put an hour clock counter on each permanent you control named Midnight Clock. Each opponent loses 1 life and you gain 1 life. This is actually really cool. There could be a synergy where you have the Rusko and then you have something like one of the best cards. You could have this. You could have the Consider, where you're drawing and surveilling. However, the most common used spell that we use in blue is this. This is an amazing 1-drop. You can remove something. You can get combos. This will work well for comboing with the Clockmaker. And this is a rare. So I have 2 rares. Possibly when I get my rare pack, I could make a deck centered around Rusko Clockmaker. I'm looking forward to seeing if I can do that. More than likely, we will make this deck tomorrow, and I'll make a live stream or a video about it so that way you can see how this deck building strategy works as well. Also, I'll go through and complete tomorrow's daily quest on stream and make a deck centered around that as well, just to give you as many ideas as possible for deck building strategies when it comes to Magic the Gathering. That way you have as much fun as possible. Maybe you climb the ranks and rank ladder as much as possible, which I started playing some rank a few days ago, just using a basic dragon deck because dragons are still decent. However, thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one.